I'm actually found the last 2 days extremely difficult and painful.
Yep.
Right now, I'm really struggling. It feels like there's a real battle going on inside of me because there's lots of stuff that's coming up, like when you're saying real, and it feels like my soul is kind of coming out a little bit, and then it just feels like there's this massive oppression, and
And now they're just influencing you so you can get out of this place. Like, they're just stopping you now from asking the questions. So just allow yourself to breathe and pray to God and just allow yourself to breathe and get back into the state where you can ask the question. Can I ask you a question, just to help you come back here with me? You feel quite afraid.
Yeah. I've got a lot of physical pain that it's coming at me at the moment, but my head just feels like it's going to explode. Mm-hmm. And my back is just completely constricted.
Yep. Okay. What happens is, by the way, it's very important to understand that your fear is one of the hooks that they can then manipulate in order to make you feel this way. The fact that you're afraid of feeling this way actually allows them to make you feel this way. Does that make sense? Like, it's the fear. Now, in your case, you have some quite, controlling spirits with you, rather than a benevolent spirit with you who's giving you emotion. If you had a benevolent spirit with you, you'd probably want to keep him, whereas you've got some spirits with you that you'd rather not be with at the moment, right? And what's actually happening for yourself is that your fear, so let's change this person's soul to being quite dark, right? We'll just call it dark at this point. Here's your soul. It's you, spirit body. And what's happening for yourself is that your fear in your soul, your terror and fear, about being influenced by spirits is actually allowing them to influence your body through that terror. Do you follow me?
Yeah, with everything that you've said, I've been able to join a lot of dots within things within my life, but what I've been struggling with is to find when it happened, because...
when it began, or...?
When it began, because, like, with the story you're talking about today, he had that realisation of bliss, so it's kind of easy to kind of reconcile with that.
Yeah.
But
whereas when you have dark things happen to you, it's a bit harder to tell the difference, because some of your own experiences are dark too, aren't they? So
well, like, all the ones that I remember are dark.
Yeah. And my feeling is that it doesn't matter when they connected to you. Most of the time we can assume that they connected to you at a pretty young age. Because we have a lot of young people in the audience at the moment, as you can realise, that are quite mediumistic, right? And you can see that many of them have very, very strong connections to spirits. And for many of you who are young, who are mediumistic, you just need to probably assume that it began probably in the womb or shortly after you arrived, after you were born. And it doesn't really matter when it happened. What matters is what is your hook to these spirits. Does that make sense? From yesterday, you can see that. And the hook to the spirit, once it's detached, prevents them from influencing you anymore. Now, for many of us, the hook that we have to spirit is fear. Now, it might be something like fear of their anger. And we can relate a lot of these hooks that we have to spirits to actually hooks that we have to people on earth. So what happens when an angry man comes up to you? How do you react?
No.
How do you react?
Not very good. I leave.
You leave, or you please him as much as you possibly can?
Yeah, I tend to find out, I feel the situation, and if it's going to be direct anger, then I'll please, but if I feel like it's going to creep in, I'll slowly slip away.
Right,
yeah.
So if it's direct, you'll please him. If it's indirect, you'll try and get away out of his company.
Yeah, yep. I'll just leave my body in a way.
Oh, you leave your body, yep, okay. This is one of the things that allows them to influence your body. Does that make sense? So your fear of angry men, all we need now is to have an angry man in the spirit world projecting at you, And your fear of angry men is going to cause you to detach from your body, which allows them to do what? Just step into your body and start using it how they wish, causing all of these body things to occur. So can you see, dealing with the fear is one of the necessary steps. That is the hook into them, if you like, the way that they can get to you through this fear. Now, fear is overcome by what?
Feeling it?
Well, yes, we have to feel it, but fear is a feeling, and what antithesis, if you like? What's the opposite?
Joy.
The truth has to, at some point, enter us emotionally. Does that make sense? Fear and truth are basically the opposites. Fear is false, appearing true, and truth is the real truth. Does that make sense?
So if I'm choosing fear as opposed to being truthful, then that's when all these...
Yeah, you're choosing to keep the false real to you, or appearing real to you. So what's the false appearing real? Let's have a look at it from an emotional perspective. Do you believe the spirits can harm you?
Yep.
And I don't. So what's the truth? Can they harm you?
My truth or God's
Well,
truth?
you know they have harmed you, right?
Yeah.
So what's the truth?
Yeah, that they can.
They can harm you. How? Because they don't harm me. So how did they harm you?
Through my physical pain of the aches of
They're
my
giving
body.
you physical pains, but how is that happening? You've got control of your body.
Yeah.
So what's the truth?
Through my allowance of it.
Something going on. Can you see? There must be something going on. And so what I'm saying is, right, let's recognise the truth. I am allowing an angry spirit to affect my body because I'm giving him what he wants because I'm worried about what he's going to take from me if I don't. The truth is he has no power over you, but you don't believe it yet.
I actually have some pretty fierce dreams.
Yeah. Many of us, by the way, who are mediumistic, go through some pretty intense experiences. So you'll notice that, like young Simon and Alex, who are both very mediumistic, and then Josh, who's up the back there, you've all had very intense mediumistic experiences. A lot of the younger ones have even more than the older ones, because as we get older, we have a tendency to be able to know how to deal with it and know how to control it under the circumstances in which it arises. But the younger we are, we often haven't got that as a background, so it's very difficult. Yep.
I've got a deep terror towards going to sleep, and even when I wake up in dread. But I get raped a lot.
Yeah. 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 And did you hear my comments to the lady yesterday about that? Did you hear my comments to the lady yesterday about that? Yeah. Yeah. You see, a lot of your fear is actually the fear associated with these childhood events with spirits. Does that make sense? So if you can allow yourself to deal with the terror, and what I had to do with all of my terror, and I had quite a lot of it, was I had to pray constantly to God about just keeping me safe while I'm dealing with this emotion. Now remember yesterday I said one of the ways that you kept safe is by being willing to deal with the emotion. So one of the things that you're going to need is some courage to deal with the terror that's within you. Do you follow me with that? So if you have the courage to deal with the terror that's within you, now you have this emotionally open, willing spirit. What's going to happen is God and our celestial friends can protect you through the process of dealing with the terror. But part of this terror now has infiltrated you as a belief. It's a false belief that spirits can harm you. The truth is, they can only harm you through your terror. So while I have terror about them, they can certainly harm me. As soon as I actually face the terror that's right in front of me, they can no longer harm me. This morning we did a channeling session with a group of Israelites that I said earlier who had been tortured and abused and killed by slave owners. And those same slave owners in the spirit world were still torturing and abusing them, right? And the way they were doing it was through the terror of the people who had been abused. Now, what I said to the person who's been abused was, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to ask 2 celestial spirits to come to you, and what I want you to do now is go up to the person who has been abusing of you and say to them that you're never going to abuse me again because you're totally incapable of doing it now. Right? Just say that to them. And I am never going to do what you want anymore, even if it means I'm going to die or get tortured to death or anything. I'm not going to do what you want. Now, the spirit who I was talking to went into this really deep grief and fear about doing that. But after about 10 or 15 minutes, the spirit eventually decided he was going to do that. And he confronted the other spirits who were in this angry, abusive place. And the instant he confronted them, they didn't know what to do. Because now all of their power had just disappeared. Once you as a person are willing to face death rather than do what another person says, from that moment on, you are now in a place where you cannot be influenced through fear. You can still have fear inside of you, but you can't be influenced by that fear because you're prepared to die rather than be influenced. Does that make sense? So all of us on the planet need to... I'm spitting occasionally, I notice. All of us on the planet need to realise that we need to allow ourselves to experience our fears and get to the point where we will no longer compromise our soul in any way through this fear. So at the moment, they know that you will compromise your soul through the fear. Does that make sense? And when you're in a state where you no longer will compromise your soul through the fear, you're prepared to die and still stick to your guns, if you like, they will no longer be able to ever influence you to do what they want.
I've had recently as well lots of dreams, I suppose, to re-invoke fear, where I've had people chasing me with guns,
Yep.
or people walk up with knives and just keep stabbing at me, and
Yep.
you're always trying to avoid.
Yep. So allow yourself to wake up from those experiences and then feel the terror and the fear, like just feel it bodily. Remember that was happening down the front here, wasn't it, just earlier? Just let yourself feel the shaking and just let yourself free, but pray while you're doing this. Because many of you still don't understand the power of prayer. Because when you pray, what actually happens is no spirit who's around you, who's in a terrible place, can actually survive being around you. Right? So what they do is they go away in that time that you're praying. And as soon as you stop praying, they come back if you've not dealt with the emotion. And then if you pray again, they'll go away because they can't stand what's entering you while you're praying. Do you follow me? So there is a lot of ways that we can deal with this fear by firstly just praying, but then asking for our spirit friends to help us keep the spirits away while I'm feeling it. Now go into it. Choose to go into it. Now, if you don't choose to go into it, you now have an unwillingness to deal with the terror, and now your spirit friends have to step back from you and allow your law of attraction to trigger your terror. Do you see the dynamic? So while I'm unwilling, I am going to be pummeled by my law of attraction. Does that make sense? To get me into a state where I'm willing. Once I'm willing, now there's all sorts of assistance that can be given to me. So, when events like this are happening, terrifying events are happening in my sleep state or my awake state, if terrifying events are happening, remember, all right, the issue I've got to deal with is becoming willing to deal with this emotion of terror. And you can do it. You can get through the emotions of terror. Right? You're going to need to experience it bodily and emotionally and grieve as you're experiencing it generally, but you can get through it. Right? And God has designed your body and your soul to be able to get through it, to be able to actually get through any emotion, including terror. So can you see what needs to be done there?
Yeah, I'm clicking onto quite a few things that you're saying, because I have processed on certain issues.
Yep.
And now I just feel like this one's kind of like a big one, so it's taking me almost...
This one is probably your biggest emotion.
Yeah.
And once you get through this, a lot of the other things that you are faced with will seem like chicken feed to you. Do you understand? Like once you get through terror, every other emotion is much easier, trust me, like every other emotion. And so the terror often dominates us until we release it. If you can actually release the terror, it can be one of the most powerfully enlightening and lightening experiences in your entire life. Your whole life changes once you release the terror that's inside of you. So if you can understand that you can do this, but it's going to mean getting into the emotion, and prayer is going to be a very, very important part of the process. Longing to God for her love to enter you while you're dealing with these emotions, and asking for your spirit friends to protect you. Remember, they are under the control of your will. Our celestial spirit friends are totally able to assist you as long as you will it here. But at the moment, you are more afraid of some fellas in the first sphere than you are of actually, and afraid of dealing with the fear, than you are of actually asking the help from these spirits. Does that make sense to you? Yeah? And while we maintain that fear, we're maintaining this hook that we have into them. And while we're maintaining the hook into them, they are going to continue to be able to influence us. So when they give you these big headaches, which has lessened off a bit now for you, hasn't it? When they give you these big headaches, all you're doing there is allowing them to influence what's going on in your head through the hook you have with them. So the hook you have with them is you're terrified of their anger, and that terror of their anger allows them to influence the headache going on in your head. Right? If you can actually allow yourself to experience the hook into their anger and the fear that you feel about their anger and the fear about men's anger, you'll actually find that the hook in that allows them to hurt your brain and your head is that will instantly be relieved. Does that make sense? And you'll be able to start noticing the relationships between what's happening in your body and the emotion that you're connecting to these spirits and how they're able to influence you because of it. Now remember, once you get out of the fear that you have with them, your hook into them now has almost been totally cut off. You'll have a few other hooks to deal with down the track, with women or with men, but the fear, the terror, is the biggest one. That's the one they can influence the most. And the next one down from that is anger. So these are the two that are the biggest possible influences they can have on you. Once you release the causal emotions of those two things, what can they do to you? And if you're prepared to die rather than do what they want, how can they ever influence you? Nobody can then. Yeah. And I know that for many of you might have sounded dramatic, like if you're prepared to die rather than do what somebody wants. But to be frank with you, you will get to the place when you're at one with God that you'd be prepared to die rather than go down the street when you don't want to. Can you believe that? Well, that's what you'll be like. So Mummy rings up and says, "Oh, can you go down the street?" "No, I don't want to, Mum." And you can shoot me, and I'm still not going. But that's what you'll feel inside of you, that feeling, like that firmness of loving your own soul will be there constantly, right? Now, it's not going to be an unloving place. It's not going to be done in anger or resentment or any of those things. It's going to be a loving space. So if you felt from your mum a projection that she's just trying to control you, you would not do what she wants, even if somebody threatened you with death to not do it. Does that make sense? So when we get to that state, not a single spirit, no matter what our condition of being still in the first sphere in every other place, in every other thing, with our sexual problems and our relationships with women, and our relationships with men, we can have all these other issues in the first sphere still, right? We might be still in the first sphere with all those issues, but once we deal with this emotion of fear inside of us, no spirit will be able to influence any of those other issues. And that's a very, very freeing place to be. So in my personal progression, the fear was the very first thing that I finished up addressing in my life. It took quite a few months of doing it, about 3 months in whole, and I had these terrifying, what were in the beginning, terrifying fear fits where my entire body just locked up and contorted, and I stayed in that state often. It felt like cramp in every muscle of my body, and I stayed in that state often for anywhere up to 3 hours. A couple of the times I passed out completely because I couldn't breathe, and I still survived the whole thing. Right? And your body is made like this, and your soul is made like this, where you're able to survive a lot of these experiences, right? And once we get through the fear barriers, every other emotion's like just a breeze, really, in comparison. It's the fear barriers that are the worst possible emotions to deal with, and ironically, many of the dark spirits, it's the fear stuff that they're influencing us.
Thank you.
Does that help, mate?